Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Into 8, chapter 5, text 48. Navama karma kalpopi Vipala yeshwararpitaha Kalpate purushashyaiva Sayatma daito hitaha. Translation. Activities dedicated to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even if performed in small measure, never go in vain. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, being the Supreme Father, is naturally very dear and always ready to act for the good of the living entities. Purport by Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Swalpan up anya dharmasya sayate mahato bhayat. This dharma, devotional service, is so important that even if performed to a very small, almost negligible extent, it can give one the supreme result. There are many instances in the history of the world in which even a slight service rendered to the Lord has saved a living entity from the greatest danger. Ajamila, for example, was saved by the Supreme Personality of Godhead from the greatest danger, that of going to hell. He was saved simply because he chanted the name Narayan at the end of his life. When Ajamila chanted this holy name of the Lord, Narayan, he did not chant knowingly. Actually, he was calling his younger son, whose name was also Narayan. Nevertheless, Lord Narayan took his chanting seriously, and thus Ajamila achieved the result of Ante Narayan Smriti, remembering Narayan at the end of life. If one somehow or other remembers the holy name of Narayan, Krishna or Rama at the end of life, he immediately achieves the transcendental result of going back to Narayan. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is actually the only object of our love. As long as we are in this material world, we have so many desires to fulfill. But when we come in touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we immediately become perfect and fully satisfied, just as a child is fully satisfied when he comes to the lap of his mother. Dhruva Maharaj went to the forest to achieve some material result by austerity and penance. But when he actually saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he said, I do not want any material benediction. I am completely satisfied. Even if one wants a material benefit from serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this can be achieved extremely easily without hard labor. Therefore, the Shastras recommend Kama Sarva Kama Va Mahakama Moksha Kama Udaradhi. Whether one desires everything or nothing, or desires to merge into the existence of the Lord, he is intelligent only if he worships Lord Kṛṣṇa, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by rendering transcendental loving service. Even if one has material desires, one can undoubtedly achieve what he wants by rendering service to the Supreme Lord. Navama karma kalpopi Vipala yeshwararpitaha Kalpate purushashyaiva Sayatma daito hitaha. So Lord Brahma, in these verses, is glorifying the supreme position of the Lord and the supreme position of devotional service. The conclusion of the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita and the Vedic text is that devotional service is the only means by which one can be satisfied. And if one doesn't engage in devotional service, it doesn't matter how much material success you have, you can never be satisfied. Just like in the previous verse, Lord Brahma has explained that the karmis of materialists, they are working very hard to accumulate wealth. So they want to accumulate wealth, as the Bhagavatam says, to buy facilities for sense gratification. And therefore, they work very hard, so hard that eventually foam comes out of the mouth. And even though they may get good results, but still they're not satisfied. The nature of mature life is no one can ever be satisfied, just like a fish cannot be satisfied underwater. The living entity cannot be satisfied outside spirituality. And if on the other hand, one is cultivating spirituality, then even in a seemingly difficult position, one is undisturbed. That's why one is called a dhira, and one is satisfied. Because spirituality enables one to understand one's constitutional position and engage correctly in his activities. So, devotees who have centered their lives to the Lord, they are satisfied in all situations. Happiness, distress, victory, defeat, honor, dishonor. They know fully well that mature life means that these two dualities will have to be experienced. If the weather is warm today, it's summer, then you know for sure later on there's going to be winter also. And when winter comes, now it may be unbearable, you know it's not going to last long, and then you're going to have pleasant weather too. So similarly in mature life, a devotee knows there's going to be honor, there's going to be happiness, and there's going to be victory and defeat. These are unavoidable. Therefore, Kṛṣṇa tells us in the second chapter of the Gita, Matta Sparsha Jakanteya Sitoja Sukha Dukkada, that one should so mold oneself that one will remain undisturbed in all conditions. Now, after having established the difference between a spiritualist and a maturalist, the maturalist primarily focuses on hard work to derive means so that he can go on with the sense gratification. And the spiritualist, on the other hand, wants to only accept those activities that could be considered to be favorable for spiritual advancement. So after establishing this, Lord Brahma goes on to explain that activities dedicated to the Supreme Personality of Godhead never go in vain. One can serve the Lord knowingly, unknowingly. There is Gyata Sukriti, Agyata Sukriti. Agyata Sukriti means one knows that if I do this activity, I'll get the blessings of the Lord in spiritual gain, and hence I execute it. So the nature of devotional service is that even if you perform in small measure, still you're getting benefit. Just like there's a story the Prabhupada could tell us that once in a village in India where there was no electricity, there was a lamp giving light, as a result of which people in the temple room could have darshan of the deities. And the lamp was about to fade away when a mouse, thinking that, oh, maybe there's some butter over there, so it went to lick it. And while it was attempting to lick it, it pushed the ghee wick up. So the flame, instead of fading away, became brighter. And because the flame became brighter, people in the temple room were able to have better darshan of the Lord. Just with this tiny accidental service, it got the mercy of the Lord and it went back to Godhead. So, activities dedicated to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even if they're performed in small measure, they never go in vain. You read a story in Chaitanya Charitamrita that there was a devotee called Shivananda Sen, a devotee of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was returning and a dog started following him. So the dog started following him, so Shivananda Sen thought, this dog wants to be with me, I shouldn't abandon him. So he wanted to cross like in Bengal, you can see there's so many rivers. So he wanted to cross the river in a boat, and the boatman would not take the dog. He said, hey, dog's not allowed. Like you see signs, no dogs allowed. Dogs not allowed in the boat. So Shivananda Sen felt that this dog was following him around. So he said, come on, take some extra money. They gave him extra money. And then the dog came to Shivananda Sen, and Shivananda Sen kept him in his house. And he was feeding him prasad every day. One day, this dog was missing because Shivananda Sen had gone out on some engagement and his servant did not feed the dog. And he was inattentive in taking care of the dog. And the dog left home. And so Shivananda Sen, when he came home and he found that his servant had not taken care of the dog properly and the dog had left home, he was very upset. They started searching for the dog, but they couldn't find him. Then a little later, Shivananda Sen had gone to Jagannath Puri. And there he saw the Lord Chaitanya was throwing coconut pulp up, and the dog was jumping up and taking it. The same dog. Look at this dog's fortune. He just started following Shivananda Sen. Then he came to Shivananda Sen's house, he got prasad from him. Then, as a result of this little association, he ended up with Lord Chaitanya. And so Shivananda Sen had given great pleasure to see that this dog was next to Lord Chaitanya getting prasad from Lord Chaitanya's hand. And next day, no one saw the dog. He had gone back to Godhead. So, how did this dog accidentally started following, or whatever, some divine will of the Lord, started following Shivananda Sen, and then he went back to Godhead. We have experienced that sometimes when we are on this Braj Mandal Parikram, and even now the Parikram, as you go around for days, sometimes some animals just join us. From the first day to the last day, whenever devotees when he would sincerely follow him. So devotional service is so powerful that even if someone accidentally renders a tiny service, it doesn't go back to God. It gives him immense and eternal benefit. So Lord Brahma is establishing that activities dedicated to the Supreme Personality of Godhead never go in vain. Krishna was asked by Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, what is the future of somebody who takes a devotional service and is not able to complete it? We see that sometimes people join the movement, they're very enthusiastic, they serve, but then they accidentally, or whatever reason, they get diverted and they're not able to complete Krishna consciousness. So what happens? So Krishna explains that this doesn't go in vain. As Prabhupada has often explained, that whatever service one has done stands to one's eternal credit, and one just continues at the point that one has stopped. If, for example, one has done 10% service, then even if you're not able to complete the other 90%, you can stop and you start your next life with 11%. Now someone may say, oh, that's good, so let me make a gradual plan. I know it's not going to get wasted, so what's the hurry? We can make a 3 or 4 phase plan, just like execute a big project in phases. So you could do that, but nevertheless, as long as you don't completely surrender to the Lord, and as long as you are in the material world, you're guaranteed birth, which will give you nothing but misery. So, Lord Brahma is pointing out that in nature devotional services, it never goes in vain. And even a little bit executed, even unconsciously, it stands to your eternal credit. Just like we have these big festivals and Rath Yatras, etc. So some of you may have heard the common understanding in ISKCON. If you see Lord Jagannath in Rath Yatra, you get liberated, you don't get human birth. But that needs a little correction, because the devotee asked Prabhupada, that we here, if you come in the Rath Yatra festival and see Lord Jagannath, then you're liberated, you go back to Godhead. So Prabhupada said, when you see Lord Jagannath, when you come to Rath Yatra or when you associate with devotees, you get the opportunity to purify yourself. And if you take advantage of that and purify yourself, then you get liberated. But not just by seeing Lord Jagannath. It's not that you're eternally liberated. This point needs clarification. There's benefit. Anybody comes and chants, sees the Lord, claps, dances, he gets benefit. He gets the opportunity to further purify himself. Then Prabhupada gave the example. He gave the example of someone going into a hospital. A sick man, just by entering the hospital, doesn't get cured. But if he enters the hospital and takes a prescribed cure, then he can get cured. So, devotee association inspires one to understand the higher value of life, and if one takes advantage of it, then one can eventually get liberated. Now, Lord Brahma is further saying, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, being the Supreme Father, is naturally very dear and always ready to act for the benefit of the living entity. So Prabhupada explained that Krishna consciousness is very easy. You have to understand that Krishna is the Supreme Enjoyer, and He is the Supreme Father, and He is our well-wisher. So here, Lord Brahma is establishing the Supreme Lord is always ready to act for the good of the living entities. Aham bija pradapita. I am the seed-giving father of all living entities. And we must recognize that the Supreme Lord is our eternal well-wisher. So if you understand that He is our eternal well-wisher, then what does this imply? What does this imply? What does it practically mean? Supreme Lord is our well-wisher. What does it practically mean? It means that what He is saying is for our ultimate good. And we should accept it without deliberation and without hesitation. Krishna is telling us, surrender to me, I'll protect you from all sinful reaction. But our conditioned mind, contaminated mind says, oh, what's the need? What's the urgency? How do you know what Krishna is saying is the right thing? Isn't it? But if you recognize that He's a well-wisher, then naturally you will agree to do what the Lord says. Just like a child, when he has faith in the words of the mother or the father, then child just does as he is directed, and he is free of anxiety. So similarly, if we act with full faith that the Lord is our well-wisher, hence He knows what is best, then one will be saved. Rupa Goswami explains how our faith in the process of devotional service becomes strong, and how we can strengthen our faith. Just like we are all concerned about having good health. So you always want to know, what do I have to do to get good health, isn't it? And everyone, doesn't matter which part of the world you reside in. So similarly, Rupa Goswami explains how one can be spiritually healthy. He explains how in an initial stage there must be this desire that I want to perfect my life, ado shraddha. And then if that desire is there, the Lord resigning the heart will guide one towards spiritual association, which is known as sadhu sangha. And then if you are fortunate enough to obtain the right association, then you get knowledge about the process of devotional service, beginning with chanting, hearing, etc. And then, if you execute this process, which is known as the process of bhajana kriya, then you can get to the stage of nishtha, determination. And by the execution of devotional service, our faith in the process gets stronger and stronger. So the point we were making is that our faith initially is very weak. And even though the Lord is our well-wisher, even though the scriptures are explaining again and again the Lord is our well-wisher, we don't always accept it, isn't it? Is that right? We may even say it verbally, but mentally we don't accept it. But if you're executing the process of devotional service, bhajana kriya, then our faith in this process will become strong, and then we will really recognize that the Lord is our eternal well-wisher. Now, Prabhupada in the purport again goes on to emphasize how the nature of devotional services, even if it's done very, very small, it gives one the supreme result. And Prabhupada in the purport is citing the example of Ajamila. He's giving us the famous example of Ajamila. How Ajamila was born in a Brahmanical family, and how Ajamila had got distracted from the Brahmanical code of conduct, and how he became a debauchee, he became a degraded personality, and how he gave up all his auspicious activities in favor of sinful activities. But his saving grace was what? What was his saving grace? He was attached to his youngest son, who he had named Narayan. That was the general tradition at one time, that he would name the children after the names of God. And this was a tradition common to almost all the faiths. They give their children names of God. The logic is that when you call your children by these names, you get spiritual benefit. But these days we see, even our so-called Indians, they are more interested in giving their children fancy, non-spiritual names rather than spiritual names. Sometimes people come to us requesting, please give a name. So we give them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 names. They keep rejecting it. Ultimately, it is discovered they want a name with a modern flavor. So then we have to tell them you've come to the wrong person. So the point is that Prabhupada citing the example of Ajamila's story, and we see that Ajamila was saved from the greatest danger. He had become so sinful that Yamadutas came to take him to hell for punishment. And at that time, and as he was so attached to his younger son, he in reality called for his youngest son. But there appeared the Vishnu Dutas, the agents of Lord Vishnu. Now someone may take this story as an excuse to flirt with Maya. Someone may say, we read about this Ajamila story all the time. This is not the only purport Prabhupada is talking about this, isn't it? If you go through the Bhagavatam purport, I'm sure there will be at least a few hundred purports that Prabhupada quotes the Ajamila story in some form or another. So someone may say, I can follow in Ajamila's footsteps. I've done devotional service for some time. Now I can take a little break, and in a moment of death, I'll definitely chant the names of Narayan or Krishna or Radha or whatever. So will that be justified? Is that justified? No. Why? Well, the real reason is, if you were to do that intentionally, then that would become the 7th offense, committing sins on the strength of chanting. The 7th offense, Prabhupada often explained, is the most grave of all offenses. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur discusses the story of Ajamila in his commentary, and he says that even though Ajamila was sinning and he was in bad association, he was chanting the names of Narayan, not with the intention of counteracting a sinful activity. Therefore, his chanting was in a way pure, because he was not chanting to counteract the sins that he was committing. So, if we were to think that Ajamila was saved, why can we follow in his footsteps? Then we would be committing sins on the strength of chanting. What does it mean, sins on the strength of chanting? You know what you're doing is wrong, but you are thinking Now I'm chanting, I'm initiated, I'm Brahmin, sannyasi, whatever. I'm chanting. So as a result of my chanting, so many of my sinful reactions are being wiped away. So this chanting is going to come to my rescue because I'm chanting. So even if I do something wrong, Krishna is bound to protect me. So that becomes the seventh offense, committing sins on the strength of chanting. I'm chanting, so I know I'm accumulating past karma, but as a result, I want to take advantage of it and I want to do some sinful activity. So one should avoid committing sins on the strength of chanting. So Lord Narayan came to the rescue of Ajamila. Prabhupada in the purport quotes the famous verse, Ante Narayan Smriti. One should mold his life in such a way that at the moment of death, one can think of the Lord. This is the perfection of human existence. Molding a life in such a way that at the moment of death, you can think of the Lord. That is the perfection. In the chapter Attaining the Supreme, Krishna explains the law of nature is such that wherever our mind is at the moment of death, that is the type of body one will get. If at the moment of death one is fortunate enough to be remembering the Lord, then nothing to worry. If on the other hand, at the moment of death, we're thinking of something other than the Lord, then there's every reason to worry. So the perfection is mold your life in such a way that at the moment of death you can think of Krishna. Now this is only attainable if we have practiced devotional service throughout. If we were to think that by some miracle at the moment of death, I'll be able to remember the Lord, even though now I'm engaged in the opposite activities, then that is an illusion. Just like a student cannot be expected to pass an exam unless you prepare yourself properly. So this process of devotional service that we follow is a process of preparation, chanting 16 rounds, etc. This is a process that enables us to prepare for the position where ultimately at the moment of death one will be able to remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Generally, the law of nature is such that whatever activities you have engaged in during your life, that's the type of activity you think about at the moment of death. If you have lived a life thinking of Krishna, serving Krishna, there is a good chance you definitely think of Krishna. But if on the other hand, we've engaged in the opposite activities, then it's going to be impossible to remember the Lord at the moment of death. Therefore, in order to achieve this Ante Narayan Smriti, the key elements are Shravanam, Kirtanam and Vishnu Smaranam. These are the key elements. So, the holy name is so powerful that if somebody chants the holy name, knowingly, unknowingly, he's going to get the benefit. But if somebody chants the holy name knowingly, then that is superior to chanting unknowingly. Now, Prabhupada further says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is our only real love. And unless we come to that point, one will never be satisfied. And Prabhupada gives the example of a child. A child is crying. You can keep moving the child from the lap of one mother to another, but will he stop crying? No. But then when the child reaches the lap of the mother, it stops to cry. So similarly, Prabhupada explains here that one may engage in a variety of activities, but actually, till we come in touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you will never be satisfied. Therefore, the devotees are very frank in admitting that all success is useless unless it is accompanied by surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And if it is accompanied by surrender to the Supreme Lord, then that is real success. So we should have no doubt that the Supreme Lord is our eternal well-wisher. And being the well-wisher, He knows what is best for us. Now, Prabhupada goes on to explain the story of Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj, how he said, I am completely satisfied. But he was satisfied why? When he had darshan of the Lord, isn't it? When the Lord came and touched him with his conscience, he was fully satisfied. Now why did Dhruva Maharaj say, I'm fully satisfied, now I don't want anything else from you? Why? Why was Dhruva Maharaj trying to achieve a kingdom more opulent than that of the great grandfather also? Yes, he wanted to prove to his stepmother that he's not useless. But she had said, you haven't taken birth from my womb, so you can't sit on your father's lap. So he performed extreme austerities on a path that was given to him by the sage Narada. Narada, when he saw this boy was very sincere, then as Dhruva was leaving home, Narada Muni gave him the path by which he could attract the Lord. What was the path? One was to chant the Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudeva mantra. Second was to make a form of the Lord made of mud and water and to meditate on that form. And then, what was the other thing? To perform extreme austerity. So Dhruva Maharaj was able to attract the attention of the Lord. But then, when the Lord appeared before him and said, Dhruva, what do you want? He said, my dear Lord, I was like a mercantile man. I was looking for broken glass, but now I found a diamond. Now I'm fully satisfied because I saw your Supreme Personality, your form, and he was fully satisfied. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, you read a story of a devotee called 𝐃𝐢𝐬𝐭𝐫𝐚𝐜𝐿. 𝐃𝐢𝐬𝐿 had very meager income. His business was making banana leaf cups. And for banana leaf cups, how much money can he obtain? Not much. And people who would come to worship the Ganga would buy the leaf cups from him. And Lord Chaitanya was so attracted by the devotion of this poor devotee that he would come every day to his shop, bargain with him, and ask him questions. Now, 𝐃𝐢𝐬𝐿 was very pleased by having this association. Even though Lord Chaitanya would come and say, okay, what's the price of this fruit? He would quote a price, and then he would say, no, it's too much. It should be a half. And so, anyway, this 𝐃𝐢𝐬𝐿 was so dedicated that he would be chanting the names of the Lord day and night. He would be chanting the holy names of the Lord. So, once Lord Chaitanya displayed his universal form to his few selected confidential devotees. One of them was 𝐃𝐢𝐬𝐿. And the Lord said, 𝐃𝐢𝐬𝐿, ask me for any benediction you want. And 𝐃𝐢𝐬𝐿 said, my dear Lord, if you want to give me a benediction, just give me the benediction that I may be able to always associate with you birth after birth. And I may be able to just serve you. That's all. No, I don't want any material opulence. This 𝐃𝐢𝐬𝐿 was chanting the holy names of the Lord. And he was so satisfied that even the Lord Chaitanya offered him any opulence. Now, what was impossible for Lord Chaitanya? He said, I don't want any material opulence. So a devotee is fully satisfied when? He's fully satisfied as a result of executing devotional service. So we must have this understanding that regardless of what position we obtain, we will not be satisfied unless we take to pure devotion. Pure devotional service is the only means by which the living entity can be satisfied. So it is being explained very clearly by Prabhupada here that unless one surrenders to the Supreme Lord, one will never be satisfied. And one who is intelligent, he comes to the Lord in all situations. Just like in the second canto it is said, Kama sarva kama va moksha kama udaradhi Tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. So Krishna is explaining in the Bhagavatam second canto that whether one desires everything or nothing, or desires to merge into the existence of Lord, he is intelligent only if he worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And how do you worship the Lord? By rendering transcendental devotional service. So that is the medium through which the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be pleased. So Lord Brahma, we hear in these verses, is glorifying the supreme position of the Lord. And Lord Brahma is pointing out the nature of devotional service is such that even if you do 1%, that 1% stands to your eternal credit. And nature of devotional service is so powerful that even if someone jokingly utters the name of Kṛṣṇa, he gets benefit. Just like I told you the story before, I think, that once in India, after Prabhupada went back to India in 1972, it was a big hit. Prabhupada in India with his Western disciples, and this is the first time in recorded history that Westerners had taken to the path of Vaishnavism, and that is true Vaishnavism, not pseudo or concocted. So Prabhupada, when he went to India after that, he would do boarding pandals in Bombay, Calcutta, and there would be 70,000 people, 60,000. The whole stadium would be packed because it was such a sensation. So at that time there was a movie star who made a movie called Hare Rama, Hare Krishna. And in that movie, he completely misrepresented the ISKCON philosophy. And he tried to show that ISKCON devotees take drugs and then chant Hare Rama, Hare Krishna. Completely wrong. But there was one good thing in the movie. The Hare Krishna mantra was in the background of the movie, the whole movie. So I went up to Prabhupada, this was in 73, I think, in Bombay. At that time, I've gone to India for 2 weeks. So I went to Prabhupada and said, this movie is going to give our movement a bad name. And at that time, our movement was new in India, We were just getting established. Prabhupada said, no, nothing to worry. People will hear the holy name and benefit. So Prabhupada wasn't the least bit concerned that the movie was misrepresenting our philosophy and presenting our devotees in bad light. So he said, the holy name is so powerful that somebody hears it, it's going to get benefit. So the holy name, this Lord Brahma is pointing out in this verse about the supreme nature of devotional service. Lord Brahma is pointing out that activity dedicated to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is so powerful that it never go in vain. But here Krishna, Brahma is talking only about the Supreme Lord. Don't equate this with worship of demigods. Just like when we use the word kirtan, we say kirtanadi sada hari. This kirtan refers to glorification of the Supreme Lord. Glorification of demigods is not kirtanadi sada hari. So, devotional service to Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa is so powerful that when you execute it, even accidentally, you stand to benefit. So, but the question is, why should we do it accidentally? Better we do it knowingly. And one who is serious about spiritual advancement, he wants to follow the path given by the Shastras, Guru and Sadhu. If you follow the path given by the great acharyas, then actually you will never be a loser. If on the other hand, you follow a concocted path, then you will never be a gainer. So to summarize, Lord Brahma is in these verses glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he has explained how the Lord appears in different incarnations and different millenniums. And why does Krishna appear? Why does he appear? He appears by the Saranam Pine Shajat Duskritam Dharma Sanstapanarthaya Samavam Yogagaya. To establish Dharma. Just like Lord Chaitanya appeared to establish the Dharma of chanting Hare Krishna. The Hare Krishna mantra is important, was pre-told in the scriptures. But Lord Chaitanya appeared to practically establish it. And today we can see all over the world, people are chanting Hare Krishna. It's not that, we are not saying that everybody in the world is becoming Krishna conscious. No. All we are saying is, now people are chanting Hare Krishna. Even the most remote of areas, people are chanting Hare Krishna. Of course, we would be happiest if the whole world chanted. But unfortunately, everyone's not so fortunate. We have to make them fortunate. And who is the fortunate being? The fortunate being is not one who has a fancy house in Potomac. He is not one who has a huge bank. But the most fortunate person is one who takes the process of devotional service with surrender to the Supreme Lord. That person is considered to be most fortunate. And one who doesn't surrender to the Lord, in the Shastra, he is called an anath. What's anath? Orphan. No father, no mother. So one who doesn't surrender to the Lord is actually most unfortunate, because his rare human birth will not be realized again for millions and millions of years. So we know that devotional services are powerful. We know that even having done 2%, this 2% will not go in vain. It will stay in your eternal bank account. But one who is intelligent, he wants to surrender right away to the Lord. He doesn't want to make a plan, a phased-out plan. Just like when Kṛṣṇa says, Sarvadharma Parityaja, Krishna's meaning is surrender to me now. Krishna is not saying he surrender to me tomorrow. He's saying surrender to me today, now, instantly. And this is the theme of the verse, that one should take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the ultimate cause and our well-wisher, and the Supreme Lord can be pleased only through the medium of pure devotion service. What does Krishna say in that famous verse in Bhagavad Gita? Bhaktya Mam. Bhakti is the only medium through which I can be understood or satisfied. Hare Krishna.